This is the Insta360 X4, and I would say if you're a content creator or you're someone that just likes getting footage of your family or your hobby or anything, I think this is probably the camera that you've been waiting for. And this is what it looks like. It's a handy little thing. Let's get into it. Okay, let's get started with those disclosures. Insta360 was good enough to send me this X4 for the purpose of review. However, they're not paying me, they haven't told me what to say, they don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. Now, if you've been watching my content for a while, you know that I use a lot of 360 footage, and up until now, that has been courtesy of the X3. So in just a second, we are going to be talking about the differences between the X3 and the X4, and if I think the X4 is a worthy upgrade to the X3. But why don't we get started with a brief introduction on how 360 cameras work, and what you can use them for. Ideally, a 360 camera is perfect for content creators if you don't want to be stuck behind a viewfinder or stuck looking at your phone. Because when you hit record on the Insta360 X4, it records everything around it. Like imagine a giant globe around this camera and it's recording in every direction. So whatever happens, you are going to capture it. And you've heard of the invisible selfie stick, right? You know, when you attach the selfie stick to the bottom of this camera, we do have these lenses on both sides of the camera. Now each of these lenses has a 210-degree field of view. So obviously there's going to be some overlap right here. And because of that overlap, the AI in the camera is able to eliminate the selfie stick, making it look like the camera is floating out in front of you. Now, the 360 mode is the very best part of this camera. However, it's not the only part. And you can also use this camera as a standard action camera, and you can shoot up to 4K 60 in single lens mode. So that's what you guys are looking at right now. We're filming in 4K 60. And 4K 60 is perfect if you want to slow it down by half. But there's also another great feature of single lens mode, and that's freeform mode. And that allows you to film and then repurpose that content in all the different formats later on. So that could be 9x16, 16x9, square, 4x3, and the best part is you get to choose these formats after the fact, and it's only using one lens. But what happens if we use 360 mode? Well, this is what that video looks like if I'm using 360 mode, and the best part of 360 mode is that we're using both lenses on both sides of the camera to record absolutely everything around us. So it doesn't matter what you're actually looking at the time. If something happens on the other side of me at the end of the bridge, I'm recording it, and it's easy for me to turn that camera around while still talking to the camera so you guys can see it. While filming in 360 mode, you're not going to miss any of the action no matter where it happens. There's also the benefit of reframing in 360 mode. So right now I'm going to move the selfie stick out just a little bit and I'm going to start moving it around, but I'm going to keep the camera pointed directly at me. So it looks like the camera is floating out in front of me. But because those lenses overlap, they're able to eliminate the selfie stick that I'm holding in my hand. The same thing goes if I bring it up over my head and bring it around. I can either bring it down by my feet. In 360 mode, I can just make sure that I, or whatever I want to look at, is the topic of attention. It really is pretty handy. Now, there's also a lot of accessories that go with the Insta360 X4, selfie stick being one of them, but my absolute favorite accessory is this. This is basically just the lens protector, and this goes over the top, and it's a little rubber hat for the X4, and it just protects your lenses. But Insta360 has taken this a step further, and if you don't want to use this rubber hat for the X4, if you look closely, you can see a lip right around the edge of the lenses. And now, when you buy an X4, Insta360 sends along these lens guards, and basically these lens guards click right into place over the lenses, so if you were to drop it, if you were to just scrape it along the ground on the selfie stick, you will only have to replace the lens guards and not the fixed lens on the actual camera. I think these lens guards are actually pretty revolutionary. Maybe not revolutionary, but they've made the X4 a lot more user-friendly. Now, personally, I don't use these lens guards on a regular basis. I do prefer to just keep this little rubber hat on top and then I pull it off when I'm ready to film. But I do like having lens guards when I'm getting shots like this. So when I've got the camera moving at a fast speed down near the road, I don't want to take any chances of letting that camera drop and then my main lenses get all scratched up. So in that case, I'm happy to have the lens guards attached. Oh, and just quickly, if you do have your lens guards attached to the X4, there is a setting in the settings menu and it lets the camera know that there is the lens guards attached so it knows to adjust the perspective so you get the best view possible. So maybe this is the first video you've seen of mine and you're interested in the Insta360 X4, or perhaps you've seen several of my videos. And if you have, you know that most of the videos that I capture are about running. So a lot of the time I'm capturing footage of running shoes or just general videos of me running. And that use case scenario is generally what I use the X4 for. But the X4 also allows the creator to tell a story, again, without focusing on the camera itself. So for example, let's say you want to get a drone shot, but you're somewhere where you can't fly a drone or you don't have a drone. Well, you can get an establishing shot using the Insta360 X4 when you attach it to this. This is a 3-meter selfie stick. And by attaching the X4 to the 3-meter selfie stick, it gives you a different perspective. Well, not so much different perspective, but it gives you the perspective of being far away from the camera. And this really allows you to get a different kind kind of shot that you wouldn't be able to get with your phone or some other action camera. Oh, because I use this camera for running quite a lot, there is just one feature I want to share with you, and that is that you can now connect the X4 to your Garmin Connect account or your Apple Health account, and you can overlay your data on the screen. So there is no GPS chip in the X4, but because you can connect it to your Garmin or your Apple Health app, you're able to overlay the data from your runs or bike rides or whatever activity you're recording and display that data on the screen. You can see this footage right here. It shows my pace, my heart rate, calories burned, my distance traveled, my speed, the elevation, and the slope. It's pretty cool. Now, you have also probably seen a pretty nifty feature called the bullet time feature. And look, this is something that has to be used sparingly, but Insta360 has an accessory, and ultimately you attach the selfie stick to the camera, you attach the selfie stick to this little rotating handle thingy, and then you rotate it above your head, just like this, and you get some pretty astounding shots. Okay, let's take a couple steps back to actually what you get in the box, and I did just want to show you this. This is just a little black case in case you wanted to keep the camera in there. It keeps it nice and safe, but I've had this camera for a couple of weeks, and until I sat down to make this video, I hadn't actually taken this out of the box. For me, the X4 just sits on the table waiting for me to use, and I keep this rubber hat on it. For me, that keeps it protected enough. Okay, let's talk some specs for just a second, and I want to show you how Insta360 has improved the X4 over the X3. So let's get started with price. The Insta360 X4 will cost you $500 if you bought the camera alone. Now, the Insta360 X3, when it was released, cost $450, but now Insta360 has dropped the price and you can pick up the X3 for $400. So right off the bat, the X4 is 25% more expensive than the X3. And I don't want to steer you away from the X3. It's still a fantastic camera, but if you can swing it for that extra $100, I'd say the Insta360 X4 is well worth that bump in price. So let's talk about some of the differences. First of all is size. The Insta360 X4 is just slightly bigger than the X3, and it weighs a little more. The X3 weighed 180 grams, the X4 weighs 203 grams, so 23 grams more than the X3. But if I'm honest, when it's on the end of a selfie stick and I'm running with it, I didn't notice the increase in weight. Insta360 has increased the screen size. We have 2.29 inches on the X3 and 2.5 inches on the X4. What's more, Insta360 now uses Gorilla Glass in the X4, so it's going to be much more durable. Now, probably the biggest reason for the increase in weight is the battery size, and the battery size has improved or gotten bigger over the X3. The X4 now has a 2290 milliamp hour battery, and that gives a runtime of 135 minutes when shooting in 5.7K at 30 frames a second. That's a 66% increase in runtime over the X3. But really, the headline of the X4 is that this shoots in 8K. So 8K at 30 frames a second is the very top resolution. The Insta360 X3 has a top resolution of 5.7K at 30 frames a second. Now you might be thinking, Matt, it's only a 2.3K difference. How much better could it be? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that 2.3K difference means that the Insta360 X4 has 78% more pixels than the X3. That's huge. That giant bump in resolution changes everything about this camera, and it makes it able to put out high quality footage for whatever you're shooting. The X4 can now shoot at 5.7K at a maximum frame rate of 60. It also can shoot in 50, 30, 25, and 24, and it can shoot at 4K at 100 frames per second. And just as a comparison, the X3 could only shoot at 3K at 100 frames a second. So this 100 frames a second is what you want to use when you want to get that buttery smooth slow motion. But it should also explain that when we're talking about filming in 8K, you are never actually going to use all of that 8K. It is there for you to use, but you won't use it all in one image or one aspect ratio of video. So that 8K encompasses the entire sphere that this camera is capturing. So when you zoom into that 16:9 aspect ratio if you're watching on YouTube, or 9:16 if you're watching on Instagram or TikTok, we are using far less pixels than the entire 8K. And that's totally fine. We can still get a very high quality image because we have an entire sphere consisting of 8K. So ultimately what that means is you are going to be able to zoom in a lot further on the X4 than you ever could on the X3 and still maintain that quality image. Now, we already mentioned that the X4 can shoot in a single lens mode at 4K 60. The X3 tops out at 4K 30. So with the X4, you're able to slow that single lens footage down by about half. The X4 has a higher bitrate. It's now up to 200 megabytes a second, whereas the X3 tops out at 120. And as far as codecs goes, you can now choose between H.264 and H.265 on the X4. That means you're going to have better compression. So you're not going to have giant file sizes just because you're shooting in 8K. The X3 has USB-C, the X4 has USB-C 3.0. So all of these things are going to contribute to faster data transfer. You know, we already talked about bullet time, but the X4 films that bullet time in 5.7K at 120 frames a second, whereas the X3 only films it at 4K at 120 frames a second. And as far as time shift goes, when you're taking a video and you're speeding it up on the move, the X3 topped out at 5.7K at 30 frames a second, the X4 tops out at 8K at 30 frames a second. So again, the clarity of the X4 image is going to be beautiful. You can shoot 72 megapixel photos, and there is gesture control. And ultimately, you can start start the camera by holding a hand up, it starts recording. When you hold your hand up again, it stops recording. And when you give the peace sign, it will take a photo, a 72 megapixel photo. So when you crop into the size image that you want, it's going to be gorgeous. I think one of the biggest things about the Insta360 X4 is that it's now using a 5 nanometer AI chip, and that just makes the whole experience better. It has a more responsive touchscreen, it powers up and records a lot quicker than the X3. Of course, we have loop recording up to 8K, and you can pretty much choose any duration of loop, but that's going to be perfect if you want to use the X4 as a dash cam. The X4 has active HDR, but if you're in full light, it creates beautiful HDR video. So let's talk about sound. Now, I know you already heard the sound from the camera when we were outside a few minutes ago, and you know, it's not studio quality, but it's pretty good. And Insta360 gets this sound by using 4 microphones. We have one on the front, one on the back, and then one on each side. So let's see how it sounds when I'm out on the run. Okay, this is a microphone check of the Insta360 X4. I'm out for a run. I'm running at about an 8-minute pace. There's barely any wind. There's only the wind from me running. And there's occasionally cars passing me. Right now you can hear this truck coming. How does it sound on the camera? How does my voice sound with the cars passing behind me? Let me know in the comments, is this good enough for a vlog if you were going to vlog on this camera in a pinch? I think so. I think this is pretty good just out of the box. I think that turned out pretty well. It is picking up my voice nicely. Now, I did hear a little bit of wind noise, and for that, Insta360 does have a cure. They do sell these mic wind muffs, and basically it's a little bit of sponge that just goes over these microphones on the side. Now, I haven't put these on yet because I have been taking the X4 swimming and otherwise getting it wet. But if I was going to be using the camera in a dry setting and I was going to be using it as a vlogging camera, I'm definitely going to use these wind mic muffs. Okay, I did say that I've been using it in the pool, so now is a good time to tell you that the X4 is waterproof. It's waterproof down to 10 meters or 33 feet. And this, of course, is something that this camera needs. It's no good if it's not waterproof because you'll be worrying about it the whole time. Now, it is important to point out that if you're going to take this camera swimming with you or diving, there is a dive case. And basically that dive case is just going to create a nice dry environment for the camera, so it eliminates the distortion from the water. But if you can't be bothered with a dive case, or it's not going to be worth it because you're not using it diving, you can definitely bring this in the pool and just mess around with it. Now, one of the downsides of 360 footage is that it does require a little bit of attention in post-production. So you can't just take the 360 footage out of the camera and have it know exactly what you want to look at. Now, if you're using the single lens mode, that's easy. You just take that footage and go. But with 360 footage, you actually have to tell the camera where to look, or sometimes you have to tell the camera where to look. Because when you're reframing 360 footage, you have 3 options. We have AI, Quick, and Pro. Now, AI uses the software in the app to analyze your video, and it moves the camera angle around to what it thinks you want to see. So if there are certain things that you're passing in the video, the AI is going to pick up on that and look at it in your final product. In Quick mode, you're going to be able to use your phone, and when it's connected to the X4, it's very easy to look at the footage that you filmed, and then you can move your camera around, and the gyroscope in the camera corresponds with the video that you're looking. And then there's Pro mode, which opens up for customization. And this is what I use on a regular basis. And basically, when I take a 360 video, I'm able to add keyframes into the video, and then the app knows to smoothly transition between those keyframes. So it gives me a final product of the camera looking at exactly what I want it to look at. Okay, while we're outside, I do have both cameras with me. The X3 is actually sitting over there on a picnic table, but I just want to show you the difference between the 5.7K at 30 frames a second on the X3 and the 8K on the new X4. So in this experiment, I ran on the same little bit of path one time with each camera, and you can see when we zoom in that the quality is so much higher on the X4. That's because we have 78% more pixels with the 8K in the Insta360 X4. Okay, I know we had talked about some of the issues that go into editing and that it does take just a bit of work, but the X4 also has me mode. And basically it does use both lenses, but it only uses the lenses that point up the selfie stick. So when you're running and you've got the camera extended like this, the lenses are just pointing directly towards the stick. So wherever you move the stick, that's where the camera is going to point. And what this means is that there is no need to reposition the footage after. You get exactly what comes out of the camera. You know what it's pointing at. And with the X4, me mode can now shoot in 4K 30, whereas on the X3 it was only at 1080p 30 frames a second. Okay, one more good addition to the Insta360 X4. You can see right now that I'm in me mode. The camera is looking down the stick at me. No need to reformat that. But Insta360 has also added the other direction. Let me stop this, turn the camera around, and now we've got me mode, but the camera is pointing out away from the camera. You can see me filming on my phone right there. So let's say for me, I'm a runner. Let's say I'm running and I want to film which direction I'm going. I am going to be able to run and just keep an eye on everything out in front of me. It's a fantastic option. Okay, you know what? One more thing I want to show you. So let me go ahead and start the camera, and I want to show you the flow state stabilization, because right now I'm going to be moving this all around, and you can see me moving the camera up and down like this. It's getting a bit funny, and let's see, I am rolling the camera around. This shouldn't be good footage, right? And yet this is what it looks like when I bring it in and I edit it to the final product. Even though that camera was just wildly twisting all around like this, you can see that the camera stays on me the whole time, and I don't have to worry about getting a stabilized shot. Flow state takes care of everything. So guys, I want to hear from you. I know $500 is a lot of money for the Insta360 X4, but on its own, if you haven't had a 360 camera, I think it opens up an entire world of creative possibilities. And even if you've had the X3, I think the increase in quality of the image is worth the upgrade. What do you think? Okay, now I want to hear from you. Have you ever filmed with a 360 camera? If you haven't, are you thinking about picking up an X4? Let me know in the comments. And of course, I will put an affiliate link in the comments, and that will never cost you any more. It just helps support the channel a little bit. And with that, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the Insta360 X4. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.